Previously on Incognito Cinema Warriors XP.
You're telling me that the last 5 years of my life just went down the pooper watching bad movies with YouTube malfunctions. Everyone I ever knew or loved is dead, and I have on skanky 5-year-old undies?
Yep. What you doing?
Charging into an army of zombies on a suicide mission to escape.
Okay.
Bye forever. Huh. You should have worn a red shirt, bitch.
And I can also tell you that the Chronolog is one hell of a mobile hotspot. I'm connected at 6 terabits per second. If you had a computer, you could get online. That is assuming there's still an internet. And SOPA and PIPA aren't still rendering a prisoner of corporate greed.
Guess we better go get that console from the sub-basement.
Alright, we are on the intraweb.
Hey, little sis.
So, basically, she's a video camera.
Hey man, that's your sister. But yeah, she's totally a bitch at video camera.
I'm gonna make a movie.
Rick, buddy, you've been on that computer for 3 whole hours now.
It's getting late, and your eyes need a rest.
Thanks, Mommy Cylon, but I'm fine.
Oh, okay. Macular degeneration is really just a state of mind anyway. But just in case you change your mind, we have a sweet action figure here that's just begging to be played with.
That's nice.
Dookie Poo!
What? What the hell is that thing?
That's Dookie Poo. Dookie Poo is a magical ground-burrowing creature known as an elf-kidna. He lives in Pooville, but in his never-ending quest to become friends with the entire world, he can be found anywhere, at any time. Don't you want to go on exciting adventures with him?
Hell to the absolutely not no.
Dookie Poo may have the IQ of topsoil, but his big heart, boundless optimism, and innocent outlook on life makes him the most loyal and bestest friend anyone could ever want.
Okay, Dookie Poo for brains, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna take your little poo doll
Oh
and
no!
leave me-
Ah! Dookie Poo's contracted the mysterious and deadly virus that transforms people into flesh-eating zombies! Watch out! It's Zombie Poo!
Rick, I'm not getting anything from you. I sense a real lack of enthusiasm for zombie poop.
You're right, Topsy, I do have a lack of enthusiasm for Poop Zombie.
Zombie poop.
Probably because we live in a hellish netherworld where the dead have overrun most of civilization. So yeah, the charm of a zombie toy kinda lost on me.
Oh no! Rick's flippant attitude has made Zombie Poo very sad. Now he's turned into Dookie Blue. Dookie Blue weeps for your soul, Rick.
How are you doing that?
Doesn't matter.
There. Mine now.
Hey Rick, is that a Dookie Poo in your pocket, or do you just have a misshaped...
He takes refuge
Oh, finally! I can't believe the Spybot couldn't connect wirelessly. Lousy medieval USB cable. This thing is a dinosaur. What's worse is it's got Windows Vista 20XX Office Premium. It asked me if I'm sure 15 times I try to do anything.
Oh, Microsoft. Always innovating new ways to frustrate people.
Okay, I'm moving the video files she already had over to this clunker.
Look at all this stuff. Let's open a few. Maybe your assembly is on here.
Aw, sick! I don't want to see that!
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Have you really thought about it?
Yes!
I'd brace yourself if you go opening up those files. Blackwood kept video logs of all his doofy inventions, and they tend to get weird.
We've seen it all.
Are you sure? Maybe you should sleep on it.
Yes, I'm sure!
If you say so. Hope you pick one where he's got clothes on.
Greetings, investors! Harry Blackwood here with a whole new gaggle of gadgetry for your perusal. Afterwards, stay tuned for an all-new episode of CPO Sharky. First up is something bound to please the kids. It's anime in a box. Yes, now you can take the adventure with you wherever you go. In a true crime against God and nature, I have brought into being tiny people indicative of characters you might find in loud, obnoxious, hyper-violent Japanese cartoons and trapped them within their own portable microcosm. Allow me to demonstrate. Simply open the box like so. Listen, their poorly translated theme song is playing. Let's shake things up a bit. Oh, I'm sure they're screaming in agony about all the fun they're having. And now for something a little more outside the box. A toothpaste that makes everything taste medicinal and gross. Except milk for some reason. I'll have to be nude, of course.
Alright, we've seen enough.
Finally, a legitimate reason to ask who flung poo.
I am getting really freaked out by that thing's relentless cuteness.
You didn't have to chuck him. And look at Zed, he's terrified.
Okay, I know I just threw that thing.
Well, you do throw like a girl.
This is the sinus infection scented air freshener all over again.
Don't do it. Bad juju.
Alright, I need the computer back now.
Oh my god. Rick. Look.
Oh, bloody hell.
How is it doing that?
What part of Magical Elf Kidna don't you understand, Rick? I'm not afraid of that. Yeah. But you know what? We should probably get to the theater, though.
Yeah, beats staying here for once.
Hey, don't leave me alone with that thing. I can handle a bad movie.
Not so fast, Flux. These movies hurt. You don't know what you're getting yourself into.
You're talking to a robot that just had every bastardized 80s remake downloaded into his head simultaneously. I can handle whatever boots up on that screen.
I don't care, but don't say we didn't warn you.
You better keep an eye on that thing.
That broke the WTF meter.
I give up on life.
Well, I guess we should talk about it.
I don't wanna.
It's not best to keep nerd rage bottled up. People get all this out in healthy, open forums just like this. Otherwise, the internet wouldn't be the positive and productive place it is today. So, Resident Evil Zombie Boogaloo is yet another installment in the film franchise that pretends to be based on the video game franchise of the same name. It's the 5th fan-slapping cash-in and the longest-running fan-slapping cash-in in video game movie history. It stars Mila Jovovich as a L'Oreal makeup model that jumps around like a Power Ranger, punching and kicking and shooting things in 3D slow motion. Capcom was really testing your bravery to say in public that you like Resident Evil by this point, and as a survivor of the actual zombie apocalypse, this one kinda hits home. So Cylon, your take on Resident Evil, how Mila got her groove back.
I don't even know where to begin with this turd waffle. It's kind of a bioweapon itself. Obviously, the most glaring flaw with this movie, and with the entire series, is that they very transparently wedge in imagery and characters from the games, try and convince you you're watching a movie based on the video game you liked and not just watching a brainless 2-hour advertisement for it. Some very dishonest, shady marketing going on here with that. Basically, it's a Resident Evil movie for people who don't give a crap about Resident Evil. As anyone that's actually played a Resident Evil game can tell you, these movies have virtually nothing to do with the game's universe. Which, to be honest, would be perfectly fine with me if they weren't moronic horseflop.
Yeah, and you know, when I saw the first movie, I was completely okay with them sort of going off on their own tangent with it, because as somebody who has played every numbered Resident Evil game, I didn't want a silver screen carbon copy of Resident Evil 1 on PlayStation 1. Knowing everything that's going to happen is not so much fun in a movie, so I didn't hate the first one. It wasn't a great movie by any means, but it didn't offend me as a fan. But I think there's a fine line between artistic license and just stamping a brand name on some crappy, generic, far-removed script, so dum-dums that have vaguely heard of the games go see it.
Yeah, and Anderson obviously has no respect or understanding for the source material, and not only shows disregard for it here, but exploits it.
Gamesploitation. Yeah, there's no reason to call any of these movies Resident Evil by this point, other than to sell movie tickets, but therein lies the scam of the Resident Evil movies.
But guys, the movie has a character named Jill Valentine in it. And she has that mind control spider thingy from the video games motorboating her bazoongas. There's umbrella logos everywhere. See? This is a Resident Evil movie.
Why did we let him come? But yeah, I get ya. It's, hey look, something or someone recognizable from the games. Now come see it, dummy! You know? There's a certain way you can change things without really changing them in a movie. You can be smooth about it. Lord of the Rings changed things. I'm sure there were a few nerds getting all bent out of shape over, Goop! Arwen doesn't carry Frodo to Rivendell. Glorfindel does. But it wasn't anything that made the film not feel like Lord of the Rings. This, however, most certainly is not Lord of the Rings, and Paul Anderson is no Peter Jackson.
He's more like Peter Haxon.
So, this clearly is not a love letter to fans of the games. A hate letter, maybe. A marketing ploy, definitely. You know, there are certain video game movies where you can just tell someone with creative influence actually sat there and took the time to understand what the game designers were going for. Or, egads, actually played the game. Silent Hill is a good example. This is very... Hey, a lot of people play these here zombie games. Let's take the monsters from them and chuck them into this piece of shit script we got lying around in development.
Exactly. I just imagine the executives over at Capcom in Japan just like,
oh, stupid Americans love Resident Evil. Licensed big budget movie. Pay off my yacht. Most honorable.
Thank you for that little commentary on cultural insensitivity, Rick.
Hey, I said Americans are stupid, that makes it okay.
Totally.
And, of course, the stupid Americans go see this movie every time they make it, and the cycle just perpetuates. How many Resident Evil movies did they make before the end of the world? 16?
11.
But I agree, I feel it's a pretty clear case of corporate disconnect from fans. At least fans of the games, which, unfortunately, are the ones who get the shaft so they can appeal to shallow summer movie audiences. Ironic, since the movie wouldn't exist in the first place without those people buying the games.
Yeah, I don't know the whole score, but it really seems like Screen Gems and Capcom just sign off on these and let Paul Anderson do whatever the hell he wants with them. If Aliens were in the next one, I don't think anyone would bat an eye.
Hey, it worked for Indiana Jones. Well, it worked for Highlander. It worked for Ninja Turtles?
There really is nothing quite as bitter as watching something that you made popular bastardized for the masses, and Resident Evil Retribution is about as bastardy as it gets.
Dude, who cares? Mila's hot.
So, Topsy, your thoughts on To Ada Wong, Thanks for Everything, Resident Evil?
You prepared that.
I did not.
Well, I thought the way they portrayed zombies in this film was really racist. Oh, sorry, undead Americans. But seriously, I don't know if I have thoughts so much as just blind emotions towards this movie. Anger, disgust, resentment, malaise.
Suicidal thoughts, bloating, oily discharge.
All of the above. I haven't seen any since the first one or two because they were, like you said, very thinly veiled cash grab movies. But it just blows my mind that so many of these got made. Who are these movies for? They sure aren't for the people who played the games.
No, not at all. They wanted stupid people to think they were.
The fans are going to love the fact that we have all these wonderful characters coming in from the game.
And to their credit, it worked. It worked a bunch of times. I guess there were just enough instances of guys going, hey buddy, you want to go see the new Mila Jovovich movie where she jumps around and kills stuff that I guess is from a video game? Okay.
Yeah, well, never a good thing when a studio just flat out assumes its audience is a bunch of knuckle-dragging mouth breathers. But hey, they're right. If you enjoy these movies, you have to either be a pubescent 13-year-old boy or lacking a brainstem.
Yeah, they knew their demographic, and stupid people's money is just as good as anyone's.
Actually, stupid people's money is worth even more, because if you trick a stupid person, then they have to give you 3 wishes.
And you know, if they didn't have the audacity to release these movies under the Resident Evil brand name, I'd probably just think, another dumbass action sci-fi flick with some stereotypical invincible vixen in leather beating up guys twice her size. Meh. I'd think, why is this schlock getting a theatrical release and not going direct to DVD, but whatever.
But Topsy, if they didn't attach the Resident Evil brand name, then they couldn't license all the monsters and randomly assign recognizable names to their flat, pointless characters.
True. What the hell do you think you're doing?
Eating delicious popcorn out of your head.
Dude, you can't just reach inside me and eat my popcorn without asking.
Sorry. May I eat delicious popcorn out of your head?
You may.
Thank you.
I can't remember math.
Alright, so die-hard Resident Evil fans, you know the score with these flicks. Like all the other movies, this one is about as much about Resident Evil as Driving Miss Daisy is about Resident Evil. So let's pretend we don't care about the games. Let's all put the nerd rage aside and prove we didn't hate this movie just because they changed things. We'll constructively examine how bad this movie sucks in and off itself.
I think you mean in and of itself.
I meant what I said.
Okay.
The Apocalypse, brought to you by Pantene Pro V.
Umbrella's more powerful than ever.
This time around, we get to watch what should have been the finale of the last film, Unspool Backwards. After about 5 minutes of this, you actually start to wonder if the whole film is backwards. The concept, I'll admit, is somewhat cool, but Sci-Fi Channel quality effects pull a party foul.
None of this is real. None of this is real.
After Effects.
See?
Alice reminds us that the T-virus turns her into a superhero instead of a zombie because of the protagonist clause. The film assumes that the audience is too stupid to remember Claire Redfield or that squinty guy from Prison Break, so they don't bother explaining what happened to them. Then we have to watch the entire intro sequence again, this time forward. So get used to seeing that.
After the battle, Alice wakes up to find herself living a happy but false life in a suburban neighborhood. Where have we seen this before?
He's not real. None of this is.
None of this is real.
So Trisha's not my wife. And Zach's not my son.
Now he's getting it.
His whole life is a lie.
All these memories were imprinted.
You want cereal?
What's a tiger?
Please get a room.
Oh, so Alice died and went to Dawn of the Dead, a much better zombie movie.
None of this is real.
Turns out, in addition to having a box turtle for a husband, Alice has a hearing-impaired daughter. Octopus zombies interrupt their lovey-dovey breakfast. But don't worry, Michelle Rodriguez in a Prius, hey, that's fun to say, is there to rescue Alice and daughter by driving them to the set of Blue Crush. They get about a block before the car's upside down, and before you know it, Mila's dead. Again, I guess.
Or so that master of cinema Paul Anderson would have us believe. Alice wakes up yet again in the holding cell, donning her classic toilet paper outfit from the first film. A brainwashed Jill Valentine, who we haven't seen for 2 movies but we're told somehow became best buds with Alice, tortures her for a while by playing Mila Jovovich songs.
Caress my head and I'm yours for life. Ooh, I kill anybody that's hurted you.
That is until the riders come to her rescue and she escapes wearing a fetching little number by Pinhead Designs.
Anyway, then Ada Wong, who has the most unfortunate name in video game history, shows up with a big, steamy plot dump. Apparently Albert Wesker, who died how many times in the last movie? Once, well, he's back to his smug self and is working with the not bad guys. Swell.
Alice, how nice to see you again.
This is Max Headroom. Where there's a wave, there's a Coke.
They can manipulate the world.
We've taken over New York, Moscow, Tokyo.
We were going to take over Camelot, but 'tis a silly place.
We discover the film's trailer lied to us, and Umbrella actually hasn't taken over any cities, since they've been destroyed due to the apocalypse, and that the whole movie takes place in a gigantic viral outbreak simulator holodeck thingy housed in an icy Russian submarine pen with facsimiles of major cities. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to us either.
What the hell is going on here?
Also, we discover a group of protagonists from the video game universe are on their way to help bust Alice and Ada out. Oh, and guess what? We're watching yet another remake of the Clonus horror. As the film finally remembers to inform us, the Alice that died earlier in the suburban scenes was just one of hundreds or thousands of clones in the facility. Goody. Clones. Always a strong choice.
And bad mistakes, I've made a few.
The cast of the first Resident Evil film, who can't find work, then pop up as clueless clones with nothing much to do but shoot at things and miss them, and try to remind you of the original film, which had at least a modicum of non-suckage.
Barry Burton, a fan-favorite character from the games, then swaggers on screen terribly miscast, played by a way too young Kevin Durant and Kevin Durant's weird face. Leon S. Kennedy also pops up totally out of context to behave nothing like his video game counterpart, just to flip the Resident Evil fanboys the patented Paul W.S. Anderson bird.
The second act of the film plays out like a round of the Mercenaries deathmatch mode from the video games, with the good guys going from stage to stage, mindlessly blasting randomly spawned mindless bad guys. It's here that Anderson really captures the excitement of watching someone else play a video game.
The liquor creature also makes a reappearance to remind you of the first film, but soon realizes it has no use for its exposed brain in this imbecilic film and quits the production. Or Alice effortlessly kills it like she does everything else, I forget.
Well, since this is a Resident Evil movie, all of the male characters are either evil, stupid, expendable, or weak, so then Alice has to save the rescue team.
Hi, waiting for a written invitation?
A written invitation, she says. Man, oh man, I can see that catchphrase on t-shirts and lunchboxes for decades to come. Where do they come up with this stuff? Classic. A few hundred action movie cliches later, all the surviving characters escape to the freezing surface for the not-so-epic showdown, punctuated with abysmally bad dialogue delivered even more abysmally. Alice faces off with Jill.
Hey, the Matrix called, they said, F*** you.
And Alice manages to rip her mind-controlling boob spider off and snap her to her senses. Rain injects herself with the Las Plagas parasite to turn into an invincible super vixen, and kills that guy from Brown Sugar by ripping off Mortal Kombat 9 at him.
Leon gets his ass kicked and Alice can't beat Super Saiyan Rain, so she shoots the ice out from under her where hundreds of conveniently placed zombies swim up through the sub-zero waters to eat her. For some reason, the movie isn't over, as Alice then travels to the White House to discover Wesker is leading what's implied as the last surviving humans on Earth against an army of mutants. Right, that old chestnut.
Wesker injects Alice with the T-virus again to give her back her superpowers, because I guess all of the superpowered things she did throughout this movie was just her training with Ra's al Ghul. And then we get the exact same giant pullback shot we get at the end of every Resident Evil movie, this time spammed with a hilarious amount of invading creatures, thusly setting up Resident Evil 6. Please God, make it stop. And that's the movie.
A world of pain.
That hurt. Time for some fun. Are you ready to play?
Number Wang?
What? No.
I want to play Number Wang.
We're not playing Number Wang.
Dude, if we're not playing Number Wang, I'm out.
Yeah.
You two are ruining this for me. We are playing Plot Hole Spelunking.
Come on, Topsy, haven't we suffered enough? I hate this game.
I need this. That movie hurt me. Bad touch, Paul Anderson. Bad touch. You two will play it. And you'll wear the headlamps.
All right, fine.
Big Robo baby.
I'm TopsyBot 5000. Yes, it's time to play Plot Hole Spelunking, the game show that makes terrible movies even more apparent in their terribleness.
Can I play?
No. All right, the rules are just the same as always. The first one to rack up as many Just Cuz plot points before the timer runs out wins. Remember, you must phrase your plot hole in the form of a question that can be answered with Just Cuz. Rick Wolf, you're up first. Ready?
I am.
Go.
Why does Umbrella imprison Alice in a cell that stores combat armor?
Just Cuz. Johnny.
How can Jill Valentine's pupils turn octagonal?
Just Cuz. Rick.
Why does the Las Plagas parasite turn Michelle Rodriguez into a supervillain instead of a stupid monster person?
Just Cuz.
Why does the Paracel Corporation place mind control devices in plain sight on its victims where they could be easily tampered with or damaged?
Just Cuz. Extra points for parodying Umbrella's name.
Yes!
Rick!
Why is Umbrella under the control of a supercomputer that looks like one of the Grady girls from The Shining? And if it wants to annihilate all of humanity, why doesn't it kill Umbrella employees? And why don't they even try to shut it off?
Just Cuz, and Just Cuz!
Damn! Why is the movie called Retribution when in fact no one receives any retribution?
Our sources tell us, cuz it starts with an R and Paul Anderson thought it sounded cool. Rick?
Why did they use Halloween masks from Walmart for the zombie effects in this film?
Just Cuz.
Hey, that's not a plot hole.
I'll allow it. Your turn.
Crap. Why would they make hundreds or thousands of clones of a little girl with a disability? Seems impractical.
Just Cuz. Rick?
Why does Umbrella make clones of soldiers who can't shoot anything?
Just Cuz.
Why does the real Alice magically know sign language when she meets the deaf girl?
That's Number Wang.
Yeah!
See, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Rick?
Why does Wesker, a guy with a ton of superpowers, send a bunch of normal people on a suicide mission that he could easily accomplish on his own?
Just Cuz. Johnny?
Why is Barry Burton a big dumb tool instead of a wise and weathered Air Force veteran?
Just Cuz. Rick?
Why, when Jill Valentine's boob spider is destroyed, she has no problem remembering everything, but when Claire Redfield's is destroyed, she has amnesia?
Just Cuz. Johnny.
Why are the African Magini executioners in New York? Why are they in any of these movies at all?
Just Cuz.
Why doesn't everybody freeze to death 5 times over during the movie's climax?
Cause Paul Anderson thinks you're a f***ing idiot.
Whoa.
Sorry, I mean, just cuz.
How are rotting zombies able to quickly swim through sub-zero water?
Just cuz. Rick!
How does Mila Alisevich know what's on the other side of the stained glass window?
Just cuz.
Hey, that's not even from this movie.
I'll allow it. Your turn.
I don't know. How did Wesker survive his second plane explosion at the end of the movie before this one? Did Batman program his autopilot?
Oh, I'm sorry. You must phrase your plot hole so that it can be answered with
just cuz, yeah, whatever.
Rick!
Why does Kevin Durant's face look like that?
Just cuz.
Really? This game is slipping into chaos. You're accepting an actor's face as a plot hole?
Have you seen the guy? Allowing it. We're almost out of time. Cylon, your turn.
How can Umbrella fund its trillion-dollar operations when the world's economy has utterly collapsed due to the apocalypse?
Just cuz. Rick!
Why is an older, bald Professor Xavier walking just fine in X-Men 3, but he gets shot in the spine as a young guy in X-Men Special Ed?
Just cuz.
That's not even a Resident Evil movie! And X-Men First Class was a reboot! I think. Well, hell, I don't know.
The director has stated in interviews it wasn't, and you've talked through your turn. No points.
Fine.
Rick?
Why does Paul W.S. Anderson get 2 middle names?
Just cause! Cylon, time is running out.
Man, I don't know. Why does Umbrella give a crap about further developing the T-Virus when there's no one left to sell the damn thing to? It's already ended the world.
Just cause!
Why does Paul Anderson keep making horrible movies just to further his wife's acting career?
So he can be the master of unlocking Mila's thigh.
All right.
Your turn.
I'm done. I quit.
Rick is the plot hole spelunking champion by forfeit. Good thing, too, because I wasn't keeping track of anyone's points.
What'd I win?
Nothing.
Can I keep the helmet?
No! Remember, folks, most movies have plot holes, but some have plot caverns. I'm Toxibot 5000, and for everyone at ABC News, I'm Peter Jennings. Good night, and we'll be right back.
Who do they call when robots need defeating? Her story repeating. Who do I call when I'm broken and bleeding?
Dookie.
Oh my gosh, we found Pooville! Where are you going, Dookie Poo? On a hot date. Watch out, Dookie Poo.
You killed Dookie Poo.
Don't worry, I got the Book of the Dead. Silly Dookie, you had no brain. Good night, Dookie.
Dookie Poo vinyl and action figures available online and in stores. You can collect all 7.
Okay, so Resident Evil, the Squeakquel's life meter is at less than 50%. Gentlemen, let's finish the job.
Let's. Any last words?
Well, I think a major failing that we haven't touched on at all is that there is no heart to this movie. There is no reason for the audience to care. None of the characters have anything personable or endearing to them or anything that they're doing. This is the 5th movie in, and we still don't know anything of consequence about the protagonist. It's just, Umbrella is bad. We have to stop Umbrella.
Yeah, it's just, I'm this character archetype, and you don't need to know anything else about me. I need to go here and do this. Now I'll go fight some monsters. Now provide exposition. It's sad to say, but the video games are less like video games in that way. When I play a Resident Evil game, I give more of a crap about the character I'm controlling than I do anyone in this movie.
Even by action movie standards, these movies are hollow. Even John McClane needs to save his wife, RoboCop needs to rediscover his humanity, the Road Warrior needs to avenge his family. In the Resident Evil series, there's nothing relatable about anyone.
To their credit, I guess they tried with the little deaf girl, but there was just way too much nothingness for her to compete with. Also, just sticking a kid in a movie for empathy factor is pretty cheap.
Okay, so let's say I'm a person coming into this movie with no preconceived notions. I don't care at all about the video games. I just want to see a fun action flick. Am I going to be entertained?
Good luck. You'll need it.
I guess I do have to say that aspect of the film is executed competently. It does deliver on action, but it's not at all anything you haven't seen 100 times before or done better. Also, nothing going on around the action makes a lick of sense, so it kind of diffuses it all.
The story is so wonderfully captivating.
Yeah, since the first one, these friggin' movies really have just evolved into rock-stupid action sci-fi flicks with zombies and monsters.
Which would be fine by me. Dumb action flicks have their place. I like a handful of dumb action flicks. But these movies are trying to convince you that they're something that they're not. They try to portray this big, epic, sweeping, apocalyptic storyline, and you can just pick a Saturday morning cartoon that's better written. They also try to convince you that they're made for people who like a particular video game, and they just aren't. It's the dishonesty that makes me hate them.
Let's be honest, these movies are for dudes who want to pay to zone out in a theater and get a stiffy watching sexy ladies in leather jump around, shoot guns, and fight things that pose no threat to them.
And that's another thing. Resident Evil the game was always about being put in the shoes of a relatively normal person low on ammo against zombies, mutants, monsters, and Jason Voorhees. It was about claustrophobia and gothic atmosphere, and the thrill of creatures leaping out at you from the darkness. If you give the protagonist freaking superpowers, there's absolutely no tension, no stakes, no connection to the audience, nothing. It's like watching Superman beat up zombies. It's boring!
Somehow you bonded with the T-virus on a cellular level.
After Effects.
Right, and I do recognize that the games have a totally ridiculous, over-the-top plot of their own, so it's kind of like, why do you care? But it's just like the Michael Bay thing with the Ninja Turtles reboot. It's somebody who obviously doesn't have the slightest regard for the franchise stepping in and changing things that the people that made it popular in the first place hold sacred. It shows a total lack of understanding, and it really tells you who did and didn't do their homework in Hollywood.
Right. You don't make the Ninja Turtles aliens. You don't make Greedo shoot first. You don't make Deadpool into Weapon 11. And you don't make the protagonist of a Resident Evil movie into Neo from The Matrix.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bigger kid's taken all of your toys away from you and is playing with them right in front of you, but all wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Like you did with Dookie Poo?
Yes, like I did with Dookie Poo, Johnny.
And even if the storylines in the games are goofy and over the top, they seem like Citizen Kane in comparison.
The story is so wonderfully captivating.
They at least stay true to the tone of their own universe most of the time, and they seem mostly coherent with each other. These movies jump a zombie shark with bigger and bigger water skis every time.
And to make things even more convoluted, Anderson will throw critical stuff into these movies that only people who've played the games are going to understand, with no explanation. The counterintuitive marketing logic of these movies is just baffling.
Stop comparing them to the games. They're different and that's cool.
I love how in the trailer there's the language of Mila in 3D, not Resident Evil in 3D. It's like, wow, you're not even trying to conceal the fact that you expect Mila's boobies to be the selling point of these movies anymore.
And she's basically the tits in the film.
Did she really just say that?
I mean, she looks so hot. It is Jill with her little tube top and her mini skirt. I mean, she's so amazing. Sienna Gilroy is playing the part, and she's a phenomenal actress and hot chick, more importantly, for this movie.
She's a very sort of tough, sexy cop. She's like all miniskirt and big guns and lots of flirting.
Well, at least they're being honest.
It's just so encouraging for girls or women.
Oh no.
I think it's a really good message to send out. She's like all miniskirt and big guns, and she's basically the tits in the film. I think it's a really good message to send out.
I love the beery smell of misogyny disguised as female empowerment in the morning.
Well, at least it's balanced. I mean, there's so many heroic, well-defined male characters in these films.
I'm looking forward to playing with your pretty face.
What else is back?
Yeah!
What you got down there, Fishy? We have to complete the mission.
Loyalty. Highly overrated.
Your boyfriend's a real asshole.
I'm missing you already.
We're assets, Nikolai. Expendable assets.
Our men are still up there. Thank you.
Will you stop that? I just imagine them over at Screen Gems like 1940s shysta filmmakers like,
damn it, the script for this one's even worse than the last one.
It sure is, but don't worry, Mila's still a hot dame. We'll sell enough tickets to make another picture. See you on the set of Resident Evil 6. Are you dumb enough to watch?
Yeah, and I suppose that's all fine for its intended audience. You know, 13-year-old boys and dumb horny guys. But if you actually don't like getting appealed to by the lowest common denominator and drug into the theater by your doinker and insulted as a human being, I'd probably pass on this movie.
Ah, the dreaded doinker drag.
Is that where you dress your naughty bits up like a lady?
Okay, so if the protagonist being hot is enough to hold your attention for 2 hours, you might like this movie. But just in case, you might want to bring some Legos.
I don't want to grow up fun.
But if you need the basic fundamentals of storytelling like character arcs, motivation, conflict resolution, and, plot, skip it and see something smart, like Transformers: Dark of the Moon.
Hey, do you think Mila Jovovich has ever played a Resident Evil game?
I bet her publicist tells her to say she has.
You know, I know she's just there for a paycheck, and that's fine. But then you hear about, what's her name from the last movie? Ali Larder in interviews going, "What's Capcom?"
Haha! Booth Babes, the movie!
Well, hey, even if you don't like her movies, you're bound to enjoy Mila's music.
Everything I've ever done is being used against me.
Alright guys, final thoughts on Resident Evil Dumb and Dumber.
Let's see. No respect for the source material, no respect for the audience, more action cliches than you can throw an axe at in slow motion, and if you're really a fan of the games, whether you realize it or not, this movie is a giant middle finger to you, and Paul Anderson thinks you're a moron. But he'd like to thank you for his Lexus and his trophy wife.
If you haven't seen the other movies, you're gonna be lost. If you have seen the other movies, you'll be even more lost. Unless you can't reach your local poison control center and need to induce vomiting, no one should watch any of these movies, ever. Even the dumb, horny guys that these films are marketed to, because it's just going to make them more dumb and more horny. Which is bad for humanity, but a good case for social entropy.
Point taken. I guess I have kind of a George Lucas complex with these movies. I try so hard not to be that nitpicky, nerd-ragey fanboy that gets all bent out of shape over just little changes, but these movies don't make little changes. They warp the core of the content into something unrecognizable. Maybe I care too much, but Resident Evil is nostalgia for me, and I guess I kind of take it personally when something claims to be something from my childhood and it just isn't. I can't help but sit there during these movies and go, this isn't Resident Evil. This isn't Resident Evil. It sometimes sounds like Resident Evil, it sometimes looks like Resident Evil, but it's not Resident Evil.
Stop saying Resident Evil.
All that aside, this movie doesn't have a leg to stand on outside of the video games anyway because it's not creative in its own universe. It's not fun. And not only is it not smart, it's not even coherent.
Lakes and rivers dried up, forests became deserts, and whole continents were reduced to nothing more than barren wastelands. Slowly but surely, the earth began to wither and die. The last handful of survivors took a chopper to safety. They were headed for a town in Alaska called Arcadia.
It's bullshit! No f***ing way would they get away with that! It'd be all over the f***ing news!
Cover up. Cover up is already prepared. Meltdown at the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, it really does have the whole laundry list of failings that doth a bad movie make. Resident Evil movies are a scam. Pure and simple, and this one is no different.
Yep.
Agreed.
I'm just happy we didn't have to see her uterus in this one.
I'm gonna kill you. It's bullshit! No f***ing way would they get away with that!
Flux, any final thoughts on Resident Evil, The Search for More Money?
Cocoon is a better zombie movie.
Now he's getting it.
Well put. So to sum up, this movie is stupid. Very stupid. But these flicks did make a lot of money. Conclusion? Stupid people are a booming industry.
And you know, some movies are dumb, and it's okay. You know what I mean? They're dumb, but they somehow manage to be fun and still not insult you. They seem at least a little self-aware. Total Recall, Army of Darkness, you know, campy goodness. This is just a hollow husk of a movie that leaves you depressed and feeling dead inside. These movies positively ooze with insincere commercialism.
I mean, the movie is so spectacular. You guys are gonna love it.
I loved the video game.
The story is so wonderfully captivating.
It's bullshit! No f***ing way would they get away with that!
Alright, well I think it's clear that this film is not going to survive our review, so before we put to rest, don't be a bioorganic weapon to Raccoon City while drinking your T-Virus in the hood. Can we think of any redeeming qualities? Any?
Good luck. You'll need it.
It ends?
That's true. If you do commit to watching this film, it will at some point stop.
Yeah, but you can also say that about a bear attack.
It could maybe be used as some sort of standardized IQ test?
Oh, right, like if you like this movie, you say can't run for office or bear children.
Exactly. You can work in a toll booth, be a professional wrestler, or... No, that's it. Well, that's that. With the exception of Degeneration and Damnation, we recommend actually getting eaten by zombies instead of watching any of the Resident Evil movies.
To the concession stand?
To the concession stand!
I've been thinking, you know what the Resident Evil films needed?
To be erased from humanity's consciousness and eradicated from the known universe?
Nah, they needed a Nolan reboot.
Dude, Nolan wouldn't have touched Resident Evil. It got way too schlocky.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Plus, who would have wanted to hear, "That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich."
Fair enough.
So, how's the movie development coming along, Cylon?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to fund it. I was thinking I might write and direct something else with an already established fan base. I've actually been kicking around the idea of a Legend of Zelda feature film.
Oh man, that would be amazing. People have wanted to see a big screen adaptation of Zelda for decades.
I know, right?
Okay, forgetting the fact that Nintendo and Shigeru Miyamoto never let another video game movie get greenlit after Super Mario Bros. And the world ended, who would you cast to play Link?
Oh, get Ryan Reynolds. They cast him in everything and he was always the right choice.
Ryan Reynolds was eaten by zombies on the set of Green Lantern 4/Marvel Zombies 3.
Ha! That makes Zombie Jesus smile.
In my adaptation, Link wouldn't even be in the film.
What? How the hell do you make a Zelda movie without the hero of time? Without the rightful bearer of the Triforce of Courage?
Well, I was thinking Zelda would be the protagonist.
Oh, I gotcha. The whole female empowerment thing, huh?
Yeah, sure. As long as she can be empowered while she's wearing a chainmail bikini.
So, gotta ask, whom would you have in mind for Ganon?
Actually, my Ganon would be re-envisioned as a silent, all-CG alien samurai out to transform all of Hyrule into members of his race. So we wouldn't need to cast anybody.
Oh, wow.
Cylon, this just sounds horrible, I have to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you're not including the iconic main character, you're twisting the heroine into a prostitute to sell movie tickets, and the primary villain is something entirely different. At this point, why even call this peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich a Zelda movie?
Because people who play video games are stupid.
Wow.
They'll pay for things for no reason other than brand recognition. It's called the Paul Anderson stratagem, and it works every time.
No way. I won't see it.
Yeah, me neither.
It's the Legend of Zelda. You'll see it.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So what's Rick's deal?
Well, he's been up for like 16 hours straight. I think he's doing that thing humans have to do because they're weak and useless.
Humans.
Sleep.
We're so much better.
We really are. You guys want to go put a bunch of humans out of a job?
Boy, do I! Yeah! Woo! Last one to crash the economy's a fragmented hard drive.
I think I got MILF.
Honey, are you up yet? Get that beautiful ass out of bed. Come on, babe, we're late.
Balls. I'm a mechaphile. Hey.
I like ponies.
How did we even...
Eat your breakfast, sweetie.
Please get a room.
There's a new carton of milk in the fridge for your cereal.
We fight.
And she's basically the tits in the film.
Oh, that was awesome.
Action.
Again, please.
Action.
Never working with you again. Aww.
Maybe even caused it.
Yeah, I guarantee that if you somehow recorded our thoughts on this movie and put it up on YouTube, the top comment would be a troll saying, Mila's hot.
Definitely.